Hey everyone, and welcome to the first ever episode of the Automotive Market Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Serra, and today we're going to go over everything that's going on in the automotive industry. There's a lot of volatility in the used market, but there's also things I'm very concerned about for the new car market, including the impending UAW strikes, which could be starting later today if they don't reach an agreement by midnight tonight. So it's going to be very interesting to see where the market goes heading into the end of 2023. But also, if you are looking at buying a sporty and luxurious car, maybe right now is a time to buy if you have cash in hand. So let's first start off with the new car market, and more specifically the UAW strikes and what that could do to this particular market, because things right now have kind of evened off. It's gotten a bit more consistent, but also it seems as though that when it comes to day supply, it's really hovering around 60 days, which, considering where we were last year at this time, that's pretty good. That's about double where we were in late 2021, early 2022. Now, the UAW strikes will be focusing primarily on Ford, Stellantis, and GM, but if they do strike, that is going to have a lot of ramifications for other brands in that price range as well, including Toyota, Honda, Subaru, and Mazda. Now, getting into that day supply, thankfully, Cox Automotive has given us a nice little chart here that we can check out. And as you can tell, the industry average is at 58 days. But let's take a look at the brands that are beneath that significantly, such as Honda, Kia, Toyota, Lexus, Subaru. I can tell you this right now, Subaru is actually very low in inventory for Crosstreks and Imprezas. But also you have Cadillac, Hyundai, Chevrolet, Land Rover, Mazda, BMW, and Volkswagen. Now, these numbers are a bit deceptive because when you take a look at the American brands more specifically, the reason why their day supply is a bit higher is mostly because of the pickup truck market. Now, on the right side of this chart, you see a lot of American brands, including GMC at 66 days, Ford at 77, but Ram, Dodge, and Chrysler over 100 days of supply, which for post-pandemic is astronomical numbers. But even pre-pandemic, a lot of dealerships would like to have 60 days of supply and an additional 15 days of supply in transit, so 75 overall. And Stellantis is knocking it out of the park with all these vehicles on inventory. Now, some of this could be due to the fact that Stellantis was well aware of the impending strikes, and that's been a thought process for most of the American brands, that they produced a lot of vehicles this year really to anticipate the fact that their factories might be shutting down. But I think there's a bit more to this because these numbers don't tell the full story. Focusing primarily on Ram, Ford, GMC, and Chevrolet, most of their vehicles that are on inventory are pickup trucks, which this kind of tells me that the pickup truck market has cooled off significantly. So the Ram 1500 has 107 days of supply, followed by the Ford F-150 with 98 days of supply. Then the Chevrolet Silverado and GMC Sierra had a supply of 81 and 79 days respectively, and that is still pretty high for post-pandemic. What is interesting about the day supply for these four pickups is that, sure, Chevrolet Silverado and the GMC Sierra has seen a bit of a dip when it comes to their day supply, but all four brands have experienced factory shutdowns recently due to a lack of supplies, which I think is really a telltale sign of what's going on here, at least for the pickup truck market. But the reason why I wanted to focus on this is that the pickup truck day supply is kind of affecting the brand's overall supply, and things might not be as great as maybe the brands or the numbers make them seem. This also goes hand in hand with the fact that vehicles well above $40,000 to $50,000 are beginning to stay on dealer lots a bit longer. And a lot of buyers, especially in the new car market, are shifting their attention towards vehicles around $30,000 to $40,000. And this is becoming very evident when you take a look at the day supply for very hot vehicles right now. So the Chevrolet Trax, Honda CR-V, CR-V Hybrid, the Toyota Grand Highlander, Toyota Corolla, Kia Forte, Subaru Crosstrek, and Nissan Sentra have day supplies below 25 days. This tells me right here that Americans are really focusing on vehicles under $30,000 or just above that. Taking a deeper dive at the numbers for more expensive vehicles, so for the $60,000 to $80,000 price range, you're looking at a day supply of 77 days. And then for vehicles that are around $50,000 to $60,000, you're looking at a day supply of 74 days, so well above the industry average, but that's also telling me that buyers are cooling off when it comes to purchasing an expensive vehicle. Then for vehicles from $40,000 and below, you're looking at new vehicles at around $20,000 having a 21-day supply. There's not too many sedans, subcompacts, anything below $20,000 right now, regardless of whether the brands are producing them or not. And then for the $20,000 to $30,000 category, you're looking at 35 days of supply, and then $30,000 to $40,000 is around 45 days, so below the industry average, which is to be expected. And the fact that we're seeing this cool down in the new car market tells me a few things. That one, buyers are not willing to pay over $40,000 to $50,000 anymore, like we saw in 2021, 2022, and maybe even early 2023. But also, this could be a sign that the market is slowing down and buyers want affordable vehicles that are also economical as well, which kind of gives me a bad sign of where things are heading when it comes to the overall market in general. But I am not an economist, I'm not going to focus on that today. But the reason why I wanted to focus heavily on this and put a lot of energy into this topic is the fact that if Ford, GM, and Stellantis all see factories shut down, this will affect other brands as well. And right now, the Ford Escape and the Ford Bronco Sport do have higher inventory numbers, which is a bit of a surprise, but also even the Jeep Grand Cherokee and Chevrolet Equinox. If these three brands experience any type of factory shutdowns, buyers are then going to start looking at Mazda. They're going to start looking at Subaru, which is already at low numbers right now when it comes to inventory. But also, from what I hear from friends and family who are looking at buying a Honda CR-V or Toyota RAV4, they're being told to order from the factory. So things are not getting any better right now, even 3 years after the initial factory shutdowns after the pandemic. Now, moving on to the used car market, this is where things get very interesting because to me, I feel like the numbers are kind of conflicting with each other, especially when you take a look at Cox Automotive with Manheim, which is the auction site for most of the dealers. But also when you take a look at CarGurus and Carfax and you look at what their used car price trends are, things are not necessarily adding up. And also another thing too is that the numbers are not too specific. So it's more of a generalized understanding of what's going on here. I do think that most of the drop in used car prices right now is coming primarily from the luxury side of things, especially for luxury sedans and luxury crossovers. If you're looking at buying an Audi, BMW, Mercedes-Benz, you might be getting a better deal today than you were a year ago. And that's just a fact that we have a lot more inventory for those three brands for the new side of things, but also the used car market is starting to stack up as well. When you take a look at the chart from CarGurus, now again, this doesn't really tell me if these cars are somewhat new or this is just a generalized look, but crossovers are down 8%. And again, I do think that's heavily being influenced by the luxury side. Although when we take a look at what's going on the individual level for models, I'm a bit surprised seeing some of the price drops as well. But then sedans are down 10%, vans are down 11%, but they have seen a slight increase over the last 30 days along with minivans, which is a bit of a surprise. I think minivan inventory seems to be a bit higher, especially from Chrysler, so maybe people are buying into purchasing a minivan for their families. Also surprising is that coupes are higher for the last 30 days as well, but everything else is down rather significantly. Then quickly scanning through by manufacturer, this is where the numbers get a bit hazy and I wouldn't buy too much into what you're seeing here. Of course, Alfa Romeo is down 14%, no surprise there. Bentley's down 10.5%, so that's of course a different market entirely. But I do think what is telling is that you have Cadillac, Chevrolet, Dodge, and Ford. Their year-over-year numbers are below 4%, and that tells me that, again, for vehicles that are more affordable, they're going to see less depreciation on the used car market, and that is what we're seeing across the board for dealerships as well, where when you look at, say, a Camry, RAV4, Honda CR-V, people are snatching these cars up rather quickly, mostly because there's not a lot of cars that are affordable under $40,000 on the used market. Then you have GMC, which isn't even down a full percent year over year. Just beneath that is Honda, down nearly 10%. I'm a bit surprised by that number. Some of that could be because we're starting to see some supply enter the used car market, so maybe that could be playing a role, although the depreciation has slowed down over the last 30 days. And then as we scroll to the bottom, you have Toyota at around 6%. 0.3%. Again, I think that we're starting to see some inventory enter the used car market. So that's just like Honda, where prices are starting to ease off just a bit there. Now, I quickly want to glance over vehicles that are primarily affordable, but also people buy them the most, such as a Toyota RAV4, Honda CR-V. And I'm a bit shocked by these numbers, especially for the model years from 2019 to 2022, where for the 2022 model year over year is down 18% on the used car market, 2021 14%, 2020 at 10%, and 2019 at 12.6%. Double-digit drops for used RAV4s is pretty high, especially considering where we've been since the pandemic. But also, even the last 30 days, you have almost 2% drops for 2022, 2021, and 2019. So there might be some good buying opportunities out there, but again, you're paying close to $30,000 for most of these vehicles. Then quickly taking a look at the CR-V, another hot seller. For the last 12 model years or 11 model years, we're seeing double-digit declines in prices year over year. And this is really astronomical stuff here for post-pandemic used car prices. And even though these prices are coming down significantly, one of the reasons why we'll be hesitant, and really I'm not too optimistic here, is that there's not a lot of used CR-Vs on the market, and the ones that are not staying on the lot very long. So you might be paying a little extra here and there depending on the dealership that you go to, but also supply isn't going to be very high on the used market for these vehicles. So even though technically we're seeing a correction here, it's not going to be all celebrations across the board for vehicles like this. However, what's really drawn my attention and why I'm a bit more excited as an enthusiast on the used car market is that we are starting to see some scale backs on the prices. And I do think, though, that there is a tale of two used car markets. And this can be said for the new car market as well, as we discussed with a day supply. But I think that if you are looking at buying a regular vehicle at around $40,000 or below, whether it's a crossover or sedan, you might not find the best of deals, especially relatively speaking to the post-pandemic market. But also, you're not going to have a great variety to choose from. Even though CarGurus is showing some double-digit declines in used car prices year over year, just keep in mind that other buyers are noticing that as well, which is why I think that there is a possibility, especially with the UAW strikes, that we could see used car prices rise again for that particular market. So if you're all looking at buying a car right now, make sure you're choosing the right one, but also right now might be the best time to buy, at least in 2023. Who knows what we're going to see in 2024. But there's one car that you could pin to a wall and say, this is the vehicle that symbolizes what is wrong with the used car market post-pandemic. And that is the Porsche 911. Now, we all know the Porsche 911 is a beloved car by many enthusiasts. But let's be real here. The fact that you have to spend an arm and a leg for a Carrera S or a Carrera 4S is just ridiculous. And it's been like that really for the last 24 months. But for the first time, we're starting to see some consistent scale back on these prices. Now, of course, for vehicles like the 2021 Porsche 911, 2020, numbers are still remaining high, probably because inventory numbers are still pretty low, especially for 2018 model years. But we're finally starting to see for the older 911s, like a 2012, 2013, we're finally starting to see those prices come down a bit. And I have noticed that there have been some better deals out there compared to what we've been experiencing in early 2023 and especially in 2022. But also, we're starting to see a small correction for the 996. Finally, the 996, I don't know why it got popular, especially over the last 12 months. It might be the fact that they were actually very affordable pre-pandemic, where you could purchase a 911, 996 for around $18,000 to $22,000. If you wanted to get one that was probably beat, you could probably find one around maybe $15,000, $16,000, along with the Porsche Boxster around that same model year. But for the 2000 911, it's down 9.8% year over year, and also down close to 0.5% in the last 30 days. And also the 1999 911 model year, down over 0.5% over the last 30 days. So we're finally starting to see some cool off there. But this kind of gives me a bit of a pause and why I'm a little concerned about the market in general. Because the first thing that usually goes in a recession, if we want to call it that, again, I'm not an economist, so I'm not going to really dive into that. But the first thing that normally goes is the luxury and premium side of things. If the Porsche 911 is starting to depreciate, that kind of tells you what's going on in other segments as well, but also for other collector's items. Especially the 993 generation for the 1996 model year, down 22% year over year. 1997, down 7%. I find that a bit concerning. Now, there could be some reasons as to why. Some Porsche enthusiasts will probably tell you that you'd prefer the 1998 model year, which was the last model year for the 993. But again, that is something that I would keep an eye on, because that means that we're not seeing people buy into this market like they did, who were looking to invest and then sell their car a year later for a profit. Now, a car that I have been focusing on very keenly, because I think it's going to be a nice upgrade over my Volkswagen GTI, is the Audi S4. And for the B9 and B9.5 generation, we are witnessing some big double-digit drops in prices. And again, this kind of tells me what's going on for Audi, BMW, and Mercedes-Benz. But for a B9 S4 2018 model year, down 16.5%. 2019, 16%. 2020, 18%. If you take a look at the 2016 model year, that's the last model year for the B8.5, down 26%. These numbers are huge, but also it tells me these cars were never collector's items. These cars were never investments. A lot of people who went out and purchased a car over the last few years, especially a luxury car that was always known to depreciate in value, is finally starting to drop in price. We're seeing a huge correction, a correction that should have been happening over the last 3 years and would have been happening if there was no pandemic. But again, this gives me a lot of concern, because that means these model years are beginning to either stay on the inventory lots a bit longer, or these vehicles are flooding the market. Buyers are now transitioning to those mainstream brands. They're transitioning to Ford, GM, Honda, Toyota, Hyundai, Kia. And if UAW does strike, this is going to have huge implications on these markets, both new and used. Now, to be fair, let's also take a look at BMW. We'll just go with the regular 3 Series for this one. A bit easier to understand what's going on in this market. And once again, you're looking at double-digit drops for the 2022 model year and even into 2018, 2017. So these are vehicles around the F30 to early G20 generation. 20% drop for the 2018 BMW 3 Series, 18% for 2020, 19% for the 2022 model year. These cars are starting to hit the market, and they're staying on the market, which reiterates what I'm talking about here. Across the board, you're going to be seeing this in the luxury car market. I personally don't think, and I could be completely wrong, because as we've seen over the last 36 months, things can get very volatile very quickly. I do not think it's a good time to buy a used car, at least for luxury brands. I don't think it's a good time to buy a used Audi, BMW, or Mercedes-Benz. You can do this research yourself. You can go on Car Gurus, check out the price trends, but this is not something that I'd be buying into right now, because you might be able to get a better deal a year down the road, but also people are not interested in this stuff now. So for the first time, really since mid to late 2021, we're seeing some major cool downs in this market. But all in all, this will be something I'll be keeping an eye on very closely. Obviously, I can't go through the entire industry and every single car that is on the used car market. But I do think, though, that if you do need to buy a car within the next 30 to 60 days, do so now, or at least get very close to making a decision, mostly because if UAW does strike, you're not going to have a lot of options, especially from Ford, GM, and Stellantis. And again, this could completely change by midnight tonight, but I wanted to get this out there just to show you guys what is going on. If you are somebody who doesn't care about depreciation, you want a cool car, maybe right now is a time to buy, although I would hold out just a little bit longer, see what's going on in the industry, but also in the markets in general. I do think, though, that we're starting to see that slowdown that we've all been anticipating for the last really 12 to 24 months. But I think it's going to be hitting a lot harder than most people think, even though the numbers would suggest that maybe used car prices will be on the rise. For a lot of those luxury cars, that's just not the case. But also, even when you take a look at those vehicles like the CR-V and Toyota RAV4, we're not seeing prices come up at all. We're not seeing a correction go in the wrong direction. We're seeing them continue to drop. So This is something I will be keeping my eye on. I will have an update on the UAW strike situation probably during the weekend or early next week just to see what goes on. I do think, and this might age very poorly, that there will be an agreement later tonight or shortly thereafter, because I don't think the brands would want to have their factory shut down. It also wouldn't be good from the consumer's perspective, but also I don't think it's a win-win situation for anybody. Now, of course, the people who work for these brands will say otherwise, but from an industry as a whole, this could have some huge implications and ramifications, which I do think could really cripple this market entirely, especially for the new car side, but also for used vehicles below $40,000. But this is also something we'll have to be keeping an eye on, and I'll be doing so over the next few days. So guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe for more. Also, let me know what you think about this video. I want to do more of this over the next few weeks and months, just because things are getting very interesting in the new and used car markets. So guys, once again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.